Yeah.
Well, I guess my name is Linda and I'm an alcoholic. Better be, huh? So I'm really scared about being up here. So anyway, my sobriety date is February 14th, 1988. And don't be impressed. All it has done is given me plenty of time to do every mistake possible in sobriety that I did when I was drinking. They also told me when I got sober that once I was sober, as long as I drank, I'd be an adult. That has not happened, and it's been threefold. It's not worked. So, my journey is not that unusual from anyone else's, except it's mine. And it has taken and still takes time to apply this program to all the things that I've experienced and to go through that transformation where in the beginning for those first years, I might have said that I cared about you, but I didn't. I really didn't. And part of that was because of my selfishness and inability to care. And part of it was I had no idea what that meant. No idea at all. And all my relationships had been based on what I got out of them. Um, and when I got sober, I continued to place the responsibility for how I felt on you. And fortunately, I was really blessed that people were put in my life who taught me the principles of the program and taught me how to practice those principles. I was born into um, a really messed up family with alcoholism and drug abuse and mental illness going back generations. And the prospects were grim. And I wound up just becoming very bitter, angry, resentful, and full of fear. And we had a level of poverty that was pretty bad. And I think one of the things that sticks out the most in some of that was not only the inability of my family to show love and probably feel love themselves, but to say that we deserved no more than what we had, and we deserved to be poor. And one of those memories is of living in places one after the other where not only when you turned on the lights did the cockroaches scatter, but in bed at night, they would occasionally, while they're playing on the ceiling, fall on you. And, that is along with the lines of not having dinner a lot of times. So anyway, I grew up with this is what I deserved, and I was no better. And I was bitter and angry. And then I found alcohol, and it was my solution. There's if all else fails, the big book is always wonderful. I it was so totally my solution. I didn't feel less than anybody else anymore. Um, I felt witty and funny and pretty and able to dance and hold conversations, most of which I wouldn't remember with people I didn't know. Um, you know, and in a vision for you, it says for most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. And it did at first. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good. And that's it. That's the solution. Absolutely the solution. But not with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. And that's my paragraph. That was me. And I had that desperation drinking for the last year and a half, 2 years of my drinking, to where the best I could hope for was a blackout. And that was pretty traumatic, because I never knew where I'd wake up. I never knew how I got there, who I was with. And I always had left 2 little kids at home in the woods on their own. And which was another reason I continued to drink and drink and drink, because I couldn't face myself and I didn't know there was a solution. Absolutely had no clue. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, so much of the program I did not understand. I didn't have any clue. I really didn't know about you, Alcoholics Anonymous. I just didn't. And it's funny, because over the years I'd received what I now know were letters from people that were boy, my mind is going blank. I'm really nervous up here. So I'd get people that had written me and were making their amends, and I didn't have a clue what that was for. And I was getting Dear John letters from friends that said, I can't handle the way you live anymore. I can't be your friend. And so I just go to more sorted places and find new ones. And, I wound up at in this small town. I was living in a small town. Didn't realize it at the time, because I was a very sick alcoholic. I was jobless. I was homeless. I was alone. And the town was very close to calling adult protection or children protection services on me, which I had a resentment of for over a year. I just didn't get it. I didn't get it. And, I have said this plenty of times, but when I showed up at this little gathering they pulled together for me, my first meeting, I was still drunk. I was hungover. I had DTs. They bought a bottle of whiskey because they didn't know if they're going to have to give it to me for DTs. I vaguely heard the word God and thought, oh, great. When I was a kid, religion was a weapon. It was a weapon. I didn't want anybody's God. But what the difference was there is that they wanted me there. And I hadn't felt wanted or accepted for a really long time. And it took the alcohol. I was one of those drunks that had to drink before I went to the bar. And when it quits working, it quits working. And that desperation of just wanting to fit in and to belong. And I found that in that first meeting, and I was in a small town, so they knew how I drank. And I don't remember a whole lot about that except that. And it was enough. I kept coming back. I found out later that I had been voted the most, of the person who would not stay sober, I was the most likely to not stay sober. And what had happened is I had just hit my bottom so hard and was stuck in it that when they told me, you might have another drunk in you, I didn't. You might have another drunk in you, but you don't have another recovery. I believed that. You might never make it back. I believed that. And so I stayed. And I drove him crazy, and I paced holes in floors, and I ate so many donuts that my sponsor said, it's okay. You don't get arrested for driving fat. It was, we didn't hear about honey and orange juice, and I didn't go to treatment, and I had a resentment about that too. But my sponsor would say, well, that's just part of your story. Well, I want to write my own story, and it didn't happen. I got what came to me. So anyway, I can open this book any place. and can tell you, oh, this is my favorite part. This is my favorite chapter. And they are. And the more that I have the honor, first of all, I really do need to thank my sponsor, because I have learned so much about Alcoholics Anonymous and these steps and the traditions and how to live this program. I have learned so much, and she went through the book with me painstakingly and told me her own experience and told me little background stories. And I developed a love for this book, and I have had the honor to go through it with other women. And every single time they have thrown something new in there, and every single time I just get more and more and more out of it. One of my favorite parts, though, truly favorite parts, is in the doctor's opinion. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks they see others taking with impunity. None of my friends, they all drank like I did. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over. And unless the person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. Boy, that is powerful. That is so powerful. And I found myself where I had promised my children that I would not drink again. And I meant it. I promised myself I wouldn't, and I meant it. I quit so many times and I could not stand the way I felt, and I had to drink again. I would get off work and wind up at the bar before going home and wonder, how did I do this again? Who am I going to go home with this time? It was a life that was very, very, very painful. I am so grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous. I kicked and I screamed and I balked at every single thing that was suggested to me. And my first sponsor told me that these steps may be suggested for others. For you, Linda, they're mandatory. And my first sponsor was a big book thumping old crusty logger, because nobody else was in AA that came drinking close to anything like I did. He did, and he had seen me in action. He was 4 years sober when I got sober. And I heard so much hope, and it was so slow in coming, but I didn't know. I had no idea where I'd be going, what I'd be doing, how I could finally feel or anything. So every single step, even not just the 12 steps, but every step in life was different from when I'd been drinking, and different was good enough. Anything that I had not been doing. And so I stuck around long enough and found such peace and satisfaction and fulfillment in just not picking up that drink and staying sober, to where this finally would go into my brain, and I would do, to the best of my ability at that time, do what the book suggested for us to do the things that my sponsor told me to do. And that sponsor, I got married. I did everything wrong in sobriety, all the things that you're not supposed to do the first year. And some of it was pretty grim. I made some mistakes that really competed with some of the ones that I made while I was drinking. But one of the things that I did do, and I'm sure this was God directed, was I met a man on AA campus and we wound up getting married when I was 18 months sober and he was 2.5 years sober. And I really believe that that was all in. I didn't want to hear about a God, as I've said, but today I can even use the God with the capital G word. And I do believe that it was all in God's plan. God, I don't believe that God tests me or sets things up or this is what's supposed to happen. I'm given opportunity. And what I do with that opportunity is up to me. And I don't know what is good for me. I never knew it when I was drinking. I still don't know it when I'm sober. I still don't know it today. I do not know what is good for me. If I tell you I've got a good idea, run. Just get away from me. The I have learned to pray and ask for guidance and direction throughout my day, sometimes many times. I also have a sponsor that comes God approved, so I will go to her too. I have friends in AA. I have a husband in AA. My whole life is so full and rich because of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, you are people that even if I don't know you, you've saved my life. And if I know you, I love you so much. You know, I owe you such a debt because today I have a life worth living. I have a life worth loving. I care about you. I don't just say it to get your approval and to sound good. I mean it. And you know, that first sponsor of mine, when I got married, he walked me down that aisle. My dad died drunk of alcoholism. And so George walked me down the aisle and I moved to Missoula and didn't keep contact very well. And that man died drunk. And I still am so grateful for every little single thing he told me and taught me. And none of them are diminished because he died drunk. It doesn't matter. He gave so fully of himself. And he found in me a sponge. You know, he found in me somebody that was so clingy and needy and wanted desperately just to be wanted and accepted and loved. And I got all of that and so much more. Is that my cue? So, okay, and there is a solution. So many want to stop, but cannot. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we'd come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When, therefore, we were approached by those whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. Bill was only a few years sober when he wrote that, with no idea of what longer-term sobriety could bring to us. I always felt that it was not okay to not be okay and to not know things. My pride and my ego, which were a wreck, a mess, but they kept me from being able to be honest. I didn't even know what honesty was. And one of the first things that needed to happen to me was that self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings. Through this program, I have grown to understand how I feel, why I feel it. I thought if I ever looked at any of that stuff that I would explode. I know that rationally that's not possible, but I really felt it deep inside that if I did any of this, that I was, and if I acknowledged the pain that I had gone through in my life, much less look at the things that I had done, that I would cease to exist. I did a lot of things, and I really knew the depths of degradation and humiliation. It's still somewhat of a stigma for a woman to do some of the things that a man does. And in a logging town in the 70s and 80s, the men were patting each other on the backs in the bars for their exploits, and they never did that to me. And once again, I forgot, I lost my train of thought. Perhaps I am close to being done. I could turn to more pages that I have marked. I just know that today I have such gratitude that like I've said already, I have a life that is so worth living, and it continues to come from this book. Every time I open this book, I find me. And it took me a long time, or what seemed like a long time, to really get that. But it didn't. It just came in the pace that it went. And I love all of you, and I am going to stop.